So, back to Pig Heart Boy. We left it in quite a ominous place yesterday, where he'd just got home, Cam, from the hospital, to find a huge amount of press outside of his house. It was quite unsettling for him. The next chapter, chapter 16, is called Questions, and I'm really intrigued to see what goes on. So listen up carefully, and then we'll have some questions from me at the end. Chapter 16, Questions. If you could just put this microphone up your shirt and attach it there. I took the microphone from the woman who held it out and did as she asked. I couldn't get it attached though. Suddenly all my fingers had turned into thumbs. She smiled. Here, let me. Gratefully, I let her get on with it. She clipped the tiny microphone to one of my buttonholes. I wondered how powerful the microphone was. Would it be able to pick up my pounding heart? Because that's what it was doing. Hammering, pounding, drumming, like it was going out of fashion. And I had furious charging elephants in my stomach. Mum and Dad were strangely quiet too. Dr. Bryce and Dr. Elrich chatted to each other as if they didn't have a care in the world. I envied them. They'd obviously done this many times before. A short woman with blonde hair, tied back in a ponytail, appeared in front of me from nowhere. She smiled at me. Just a touch of makeup? I drew away in horror. No, thank you. What did she take me for? She smiled at the look on my face. It's just some powder to take the shine off your face while you're in front of the camera. You don't want to shine like an oil slick, do ya? I don't mind, I told her. I'm not an actor or anything. I don't need makeup. I'll let you into a little secret, she whispered. Footballers, boxers, sports stars in general, they all have makeup on when they're interviewed on the telly. That's what makes them look really good. Footballers? Really? I was still suspicious. Really? The makeup lady nodded. Well, all right then, I agreed reluctantly. But only powder. I don't want any mascara or lipstick or stuff like that. She laughed. Course not. Behind me, I could hear Mum and Dad laughing too. I couldn't help flinching a bit, but when she dabbed at my face with a dry sponge covered in powder. The moment the press conference was over, I'd find the nearest sink and this muck was coming straight off. I watched as she patted some powder on Mum's face and then Dad's. He looked about as impressed as I had been. Yeah, it wasn't so funny when he had to do it too. I looked around. My elephants were still charging. Mum, what if I say something wrong? I whispered anxiously. You won't, dear, Mum smiled. Just answer each question truthfully and then shut up. Dad started grinning. I frowned at Mum. If she thought she was putting my mind at ease, she was very much mistaken. The trick is to tell what you know, but don't tell all you know, she continued. Dad looked at her surprised. What makes you such an expert? I read it in a magazine somewhere, she replied vaguely. Dr. Bryce, aren't you nervous? I interrupted his conversation with Dr. Elrich. I'm always nervous at these things, Dr. Bryce admitted to my surprise. He leaned closer and lowered his voice. But someone once told me that if you have to talk to a lot of people, just imagine them all naked and it makes you less nervous. I burst out laughing. Really? Really? Mr. and Mrs. Kelsey, doctors, Cameron, we're ready for you now. A man wearing headphones with a microphone attached ushered us from the waiting room, then strode ahead to lead the way down the grey corridor. No one spoke. My mouth was so dry, I wondered how I'd get out one word, never mind a sentence if anyone asked me anything. But hopefully all the questions would be directed at the doctors. I couldn't think what anyone would want to ask me apart from how I was feeling, and that I could answer, just about. We turned another corner, then came to a set of double doors with the large words, Quiet Please, written on them. A red bulb was situated on the wall above the doors, but it wasn't switched on. The man opened the double doors for us and we all trooped in. Dr. Bryce first and me last. We were in a large studio with lots of huge lights hanging from the ceiling, and at one end of the studio was a large table on a long platform. The table practically groaned under the weight of all the microphones that were on it. I'd never seen so many microphones in my entire life. and every light in the place seemed to be trained on the table. Rows of chairs were placed in front of the microphones, but they were in dark shadow. There was an aisle down the middle of the chairs, and I could see a TV camera being pushed up it, closer to the table. Reporters and journalists sat on the chairs with digital recorders and notepads. On either side of the chairs were yet more men and women with cameras. The cameras started flashing as soon as they became aware of our presence. Everyone stood up and turned to face us. An instant buzz filled the studio. Huge, heavy studio cameras swung round to follow our progress. I wanted to sit at the end of the table to be as inconspicuous as possible, but I was ushered to the chair next to Dr. Bryce, and he sat in the middle with the lights full on him. Glancing down the table, I saw Dr. Elrich at one end of the table on the other side of Dr. Bryce. Then there was me and Mum and Dad sat at the other end of the table. As I looked around, I felt like a rabbit caught in the headlights of a car. I sat in my chair, frozen. I couldn't have moved at that moment, even if the whole studio was on fire. It was like being in the car trying to get out to our house all over again, except this was worse. I couldn't make out any faces, not full faces. They were shrouded in shadow. The intensely bright lights trained on our table were baking my head and making my skin prickle. If only the camera flashes would stop, just for a second. "Quiet, please. 5 seconds to air," a man's voice yelled out from the floor before us. Instantly, the camera flashes stopped. 4, 3. I looked around panic-stricken. This was just a dress rehearsal, wasn't it? We would get the chance to hear the questions and practice first, wouldn't we? A red light flashed on the TV camera directly in front of our table. "Oh, I'd like to begin by reading a statement," Dr. Bryce immediately announced. He glanced down at a sheet of paper before looking into the huge TV camera ahead. "For years now, the number of people waiting for heart transplants has far exceeded the number of hearts available for transplantation. At our research lab, we've been working on ways to overcome this problem. Our solution has been to use the hearts of specially bred and genetically altered animals, in this case, pigs. Once government restrictions were lifted a few years ago, there was no reason why we couldn't proceed confident of success. Cameron here is living proof that pig heart transplantations do work. We've all been amazed at his progress. He's fitter and has a better quality of life now than he ever did. Cameron is our first success, but I know he won't be our last. I think that at long last we can offer a viable remedy to those in urgent need of a heart transplant, who have been told time and time again that there are no hearts available. Thank you." As I watched the doctor deliver his speech, an icy feeling squeezed at my stomach and started to fan out through the rest of my body. He made the whole thing sound so cool, so clinical. He could have been talking about a new make of car that would make everyone's life better, or a brand new brand of microwavable chip. Dr. Bryce sat back, his hands on his lap, his fingers linked. I looked from his hands to his face and realised something. He was acting. I don't mean in an obvious theatrical way, but his speech was well rehearsed and professionally delivered, and even his current pose was staged. I looked away, confused by my feelings. Why was I so disappointed? So guys, I'm going to leave that there and we're going to pick up in the next video. Brilliant so far, really intriguing. Just my question based on what I've just read. Why does the thought of Dr. Bryce acting disappoint Cameron? What do you think about that? Think on that while you're getting on to the next video for the rest of chapter 16, which will be coming very shortly.